This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 330 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. The Dressage Radio Show crew is out and about this week, so tuck in your earbuds and enjoy this previously aired masterpiece from the HRN Audio Vaults, featuring Linda Parelli, Kelly McGinn, and the 5 Habits of Highly Effective Dressage People.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Waxahachie, Florida.
And this is Philip Parks from Fergus, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show. Without our producer, Glenn, this week, but I'm back. So we kind of...
I know. Hi, Philip.
You get me. We lose Glenn. Maybe next week we'll all be together again.
I know. And actually, we are going to be together this week on Thursday. You're coming to Florida. So I'm really looking forward to your trip down here.
Yeah. And we're trying to drag Glenn down from Ocala so we can all get together. I mean, I think we told you 2 weeks ago that I've never met Glenn in person. So we're looking to have a good time. And
it's going to be a great weekend. I'm sure we will have some pictures for our listeners and us having a good time in Florida. And I am going to steal a lesson from Philip. He doesn't know that yet, but
I think
I'm telling you now.
Trade. I actually get to stay with Reese, so she's nice enough to put up with me.
I'm going to put him to work, guys.
So, I don't mind doing that. That's fun. I mean, that's why I get to do it every day. It's fun. And so
exactly.
Looking forward to seeing Denali. I've never seen him under saddle, and
I know
some of these other horses you've been talking about and stuff. So
it'll be fun, and then we have a horse show. So I'm sure I'm going to put you to work as a groom at some point.
Oh no, I'm a very expensive groom.
Expensive groom. Yeah, no doubt. Me too. But we have a show here at the barn, so it's just down the road. Everybody can hack to it. So that'll be fun, and it's a big week down here. I've got a lesson with Mr. Schumacher tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
And then Denali, I have a lesson with him with Kathy Conley on Wednesday, and then you come on Thursday. So it's going to be a lot of fun and really busy down here. So
it's
good.
Lucky. Yeah, stuff every week. It seems like you're doing stuff every week. That seems fun.
That is
not digging your car out of the snow. It's not one of those activities.
And I'm sorry to anybody that's doing that. That is, honestly, Philip, that is the reason you come. I have to say, financially for a trainer, it is not, and even my students, like it is a huge financial burden to come down here. But it is worth it. You get to see so many horses and do so many things. So it's very much something that I recommend to people if they can do it. And we talked about earlier about doing a show on how some people make it work for them. So there's some ideas that we have for people that want to come to Florida or California or Europe. I mean, there's lots of ways to get training. Sometimes you have to be creative, but it's definitely worth it.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. I'm sure people will be interested to see how to make it, how other people make it work, how trainers make it work, because it's a business. It is in the end about making some money, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
Hopefully, sometimes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We know what that's like. So, what do we got on the show this week for everybody?
Well, we have a really interesting lineup. We have Linda Parelli actually is going to come on and talk to her. She has just started riding dressage, and she and the Parelli team put on a dressage summit here in Wellington at Global last week. And so we have Linda Parelli coming on. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her take on how she's adding her system into dressage. Cool. And then we have Kelly McGinn.
Yeah, I mean, she's a friend of ours from the Young Horse Trainers thing, and a really great person, great trainer, and so I'm looking forward to hearing her trainer tip. That sounds fun.
Exactly. So that's our show, and we are going to finish our list. We did not do this last week because I couldn't do it with Glenn. Not that he's not wonderful, but I finished our list here.
We got the last 5 of the top 10 habits of highly effective dressage riders. So we missed a week there. We promised you the second half, but it's coming. It's coming today. So
don't worry.
So that's great. So I guess we should get to the news first, then
do it,
and then all these great interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting and it is April 1st, helmets will be the rule at all USEF events, including senior riders in Grand Prix and small tour events, effective April 1st. So if you are riding a senior rider and you're riding in an FEI CDI class, you are still allowed to wear top hats.
Right. That's only at FEI shows. I mean, this rule came into effect for Canada last year, actually. I think we were the first nation. Yeah. So in all national competition classes that you have to wear a helmet. So I think that's really great. And I think, my top hat is really, really tight. And so I actually prefer to wear a helmet anyways. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, I train also in a helmet all the time now. So it's just become part of what we do. And I think that's great. I think as we continue as a nation and kids are growing up and they're wearing helmets and it's not that stigma of, oh, gosh, I need to wear a top hat. I think we're going to save a lot of people's lives and really be good examples. So that is what's going on.
And in competition news, a Canadian, Christophe Boylan, took the top 2 placings in the small tour at the Wellington. Which show was that?
Yeah, it was at Global last week. It was the CDI. I know it's okay. Yeah. It's confusing. There are horse
so
shows
many
here
shows,
all the time. Yeah, it was the Global. It was sponsored by the USPRE Association, and it was the CDI last week. And Crystal won the small tour, and Collecto 5 won by Tina Cognac. She's been here on the show. She's a wonderful lady. Won the freestyle with a 77.25%. And Tina Williamson was second, and she had a total of a 74.
I was just saying another Canadian, Jackie Brooks, with third. So that's a great top 3. And Crystal, I think it's her first season in Florida, winning, Prix St. George, and I won Classice. So more great competition, great horses coming out, different ones from different seasons, and I think that's great.
Yeah, exactly. So really, really good stuff. And again, wonderful horses to watch and see. And you can pretty much see them all the time now. So really a wonderful thing. So after this break from Kentucky Performance Products, Philip and I are going to be back with the last 5 of the effective habits of a dressage rider.
Joint Armor from KPP provides your horse with the building blocks necessary to maintain healthy joints throughout his lifetime. Kentucky Performance Products Quality Assurance provides you with the confidence that you are purchasing a safe, high-quality product. Your satisfaction is guaranteed. Joint Armor is concentrated and affordable. 1 jar lasts a whole 75 days. Joint Armor helps maintain fluid motion and flexibility in your horse's joints. It also supports normal cartilage development and reduces joint deterioration. Learn more about Joint Armor from Kentucky Performance Products and all their other terrific products at kppusa.com. That's kppusa.com.
And now we're going to get into the bottom 5 or the top 5, however you want to think about it, habits of highly effective dressage riders. So number 6 here is an effective dressage rider knows success happens one ride at a time, day in, day out, remaining consistent and realistic in their daily goals and expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so true. And I think, especially for you guys up north, when there's not all this excitement, it sometimes can be hard day in and day out. And I think you need to always have a training plan, always have an idea of where you're going and what you're doing. That really, really helps.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing is that it does not happen for anyone overnight, no matter, how many years you've been riding, how many horses you've taken to Grand Prix. Each one is built day to day, working on first the basics and then, coming through the training scale and just developing each horse at their own pace. I mean, it can be a little, it can be very frustrating at times to have to train the same movement every day, to make it better. And over a couple weeks, it feels like it's not going anywhere fast, and it just doesn't go anywhere fast. So I think, for all amateur riders who feel like, they're not making progress, I think, progress happens slowly, but you make big changes over a long time. And that's how everyone does it, and that's just that's the way it goes. That's part of the sport, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think that the whole just remaining consistent and realistic, I think I think some people, I'll hear their goals or ask them their goals. And sometimes I have to reel them in and say, is that a realistic goal? really, are you going to be at 4th level or 3rd level in April when, you're not really, your horse isn't really through yet? I think sometimes you've got to really work on that realism actually as well. So.
Well, and the basics are the things that, laying a great foundation is part of really doing a good job, right? Take your time with that, and the rest comes so fast.
Yep.
Like if you really work on suppleness or on rhythm, and making sure that's good. The tricks, we call them, a little bit of tricks, things, flying changes and all the things, the really difficult movements are built on solid basics that you really take your time and do and make sure are done right. And sometimes you have to go back to them and then, the horse, if you're feeling frustrated, the horse is definitely going to feel that through you. And so, kind of temper your expectations sometimes and be able to do that, every day and go out there with a good training plan, like you said.
Yeah. So number 7, an effective dressage rider has courage to be creative in problem solving. Their courage goes beyond the textbook and thinking independently. Yeah, this is huge. This is huge. I think it's easy in a way to think that, like, oh yeah, I can be creative, but it takes a long time actually to be able to be creative, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to a lot of students and other trainers about building a toolbox for your problems, right? Every horse is an individual. Everybody that I teach is an individual. So you're building relationships between people and horses, or between myself and horses. Every single one is different, and so you've got to have a lot of tools to improve the horses, to improve your students, and not to be stuck. If you're having a problem, don't get stuck there. Think of maybe there's another way to explain it to the horse, to the rider, to get through these problems.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think this is where, and I encourage my students to read and audit and go get some other ideas, because maybe there are some other ideas that, sometimes we all get stuck in a little rut, like, oh, this is how we do it. And sometimes that works, but then there are other times where it doesn't work that way. And you need to say, okay, let's work on doing X or Y, or be a little creative with your exercises. Instead of doing all circles, do teardrops one day, or, square turns instead of round turns. Yeah. I think that I work with my students, the ones that are confident on, okay, if I'm not sitting here right now, how would you solve this problem? Yeah. And that's, I think, an important, and I even ask myself that, after a ride, I will have ridden a horse, and I may think back and say, gosh, that wasn't maybe the best thing that I could have done. I could have maybe done it better. And I think that's what makes us good riders and trainers, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of my, go-to exercises that I think really work well with most horses, but a lot of times you just got to get out of the box a little bit and figure it out. Use your brain, because it's definitely training a horse is not a straightforward, not straightforward problems and not straightforward solutions. So yeah, I think always I'm always trying to follow the training scale in problem solving. And then once, that gives you a guideline on how to fix problems, but there's no strict, you have to do this to be able to accomplish a good shoulder in, or sometimes I work my way up. I think, oh, there's a little problem in the shoulder in. I'm going to do a little half-fast to see if I can identify what the problem is sometimes, and in that way go about, fixing it. But I think you got to be doing, not hammering away at the same thing. Being consistent is one thing, but if you've got a problem, maybe you have a friend you could ask, or I have lots of trainers who are friends who are, I think, oh, I got this horse, I got this problem, Reese helps me out. What do you think? I don't stick in your own space. Find other ways to be creative.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. And going back to the training scale, in my arena at home, USDF, and I'm not sure about Dressage Canada, but USDF sells a poster. And okay. I bought that poster and I hung it in my ring, and it's up high, and you can walk over, and I encourage my students, to walk over to that poster. If I'm not there, walk over to that poster and look at the training scale and figure out sort of where your problem is. And that's been the best $79 or whatever that I have spent, because it does help. So that's, you don't have to buy the USDF one. Sorry, USDF, or you can. But you can make one. I mean, this information is out there and easy to find and very good to have in your arena, or even something you can pull out of your pocket to say, oh gosh, where's my problem? Is it rhythm? Is it relaxation? So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Number 8, an effective dressage rider knows they must be an athlete in their own right before they can expect the equine partner to be one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I mean, we've had a couple of guests on to talk about fitness who have, fitness programs that they get into, and I mean, a huge proponent of this, in a lot of different ways, right? Strength-wise, cardio-wise, flexibility. There's lots of things that can help you help the horse.
Yeah. Well, we went to that trainers conference with Stefan Peters and Scott, and we talked about it here on the show. And one thing that Stefan says, I mean, Stefan's amazing, and he clearly does a lot of fitness work. And one of the things he said to all of us trainers that were sitting there, and that was that he makes workout a priority. Right. And I have really been trying to do that for myself here in Florida. But I'm going to do it at home. And that is, I have to make this a priority in my life, that I get it done, 5 days a week. Because it's so easy. And I am probably more guilty than most people. I get busy, or, I need to clean the house, or I need to go grocery shopping, or I need, I have other things outside of my life, my family life and that type of thing. And when I heard him say that, make this a priority, I actually wrote it on I have a sticker on my mirror here, make workout a priority. So that's what I've been doing down here. I feel a lot better. I have a long way to go, but I have been trying to do that. So that's something that I've been doing, and that when Stefan said that, make it a priority, I've been trying to do it. So that helps everyone. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, you can do as much or as little as you can, right? I mean, we all can have big goals as far as but life does get in the way. But I think try and do a little bit of everything, a little bit of something every day that,
little something
goes a long way, I think, over time.
Better than nothing. Exactly. All right. So number 9, an effective dressage rider knows there is only one direction to go, and that is forward. So that's actually, that's a good one. I like that one.
If all else fails, go forward.
Go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said with that. I don't know about you, Philip, but I always like to talk that there are 2 things that a dressage horse has to do, and that is stop and go.
Right. Brakes and gas, right?
Brakes and gas.
That's the beginning of everything, right?
So I'm going to add that into this discussion, a little brakes and gas, but go forward. I think, again, a default. If you're having trouble and you're stuck, go forward. Yeah. I think that's a good one to.
Yeah, I think in the sport we really ride a lot of try and get a lot of control, right? And try and control the forward movement, control the sideways movement, control this, control that, and that can lead to a lot of stifling the horse's natural ability or the natural need to just go. I mean, that's how they're built. That's that's their nature. And you can solve a lot of mental issues for the horse just by going forward sometimes. I mean, we talk about going on hacks, stuff like that, but even in the ring, if it's not going well and your horse is getting a little pissed off, just do some canter or do something to get out of the box a little bit. Don't always ride super controlled, because it'll lead to issues in the end, I think.
No, yeah. And, I'm not opposed to a half seat every once in a while, especially on the young ones. Just get up.
Free up their back a little bit. Yeah, it's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, and even on the old ones. I mean, the older ones, they need to have a little fun too. And, I think that's great.
All right. Now, number 10.
Okay. Drum roll, everybody.
An effective dressage rider works for their horse, not vice versa.
Yeah. It seems so easy, doesn't it?
I mean, each one of these is great, but really implementing it day by day is hard, I think.
It is. And, it's true, because I think we all very much want to do that. And I think sometimes we forget.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun for you, and it's supposed to be fun for the horse, right? I mean, it's not all about master and servant kind of relationship. I mean, the horse has to respect the rider, I think, in a lot of ways, but also, it is a sport, but you have to enjoy it every day, because if you're riding consistently and you're going at it, it can really be not fun for both parties if you're just hammering away at problems and you're you're getting frustrated or the horse is getting frustrated. I mean, your job is to really figure out how to get the horse to do his best work and want to work for you. I think I try and say that a lot. Like, make the horse want to work for you, and then you'll never have a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's how you have to approach issues that way.
Yeah, no, and true partners, this it on our notes, it's true partners from the stall to the aisle to the schooling ring and back again. And I think that's right. You know, you always have to remember that, you know, at the end of the day, we're the boss, if you want to say. You know, if horses don't want to work for you and they're kicking and they're rearing, and you have to kind of think, what is it? You know, are they painful? Are they this? Are they that? And, you know, this is not always the easiest. And I have, Philip, and I'm sure you have had points in your career where you're like, okay, this isn't working. And I've got to step back big time and figure out what's not working and where can I go back. And we've all been there. Yeah.
I mean, for sure. And we make mistakes as trainers as well. I mean, you know, throughout my riding career and that, I for sure can look back and say, you know what, I wasn't the best friend to my horse that day. And, you know, so when I come across a problem, or I come across a problem horse, you know, how can you be the best rider for them? And sometimes you're not. I think we talked about this before, and saying, you know, maybe I need to get a friend to ride this horse for a little bit, or maybe I need to figure that I'm not the person for this horse at this moment, and to step back and get away, and again, being creative, and this kind of brings all these points together about how this is a good one to kind of wrap it up, and how to get the job done, how to do the sport, but be fair to the horse and be fair to yourself. So I think this is a really good 10 points. You know, we got to think, you know, whoever came up with it was a nice thing to come across and a nice thing to talk about. And you know, we always love content for the show, right, Reese? Some
exactly. We love it. We love it. Well, that was really great. And you can find it online. This list is online. So feel free to take a look at it and post it in your barn for sure. It went all over Facebook. So that's where we picked it up. So we have a special treat to hear from Linda Parelli about the Dressage Summit that happened in Wellington last week.
Reese is joined in this interview by Coach Jennifer, host of the Horse Tip Daily Show here on the Horse Radio Network.
Well, I am very happy to have Linda Parelli here on the Dressage Radio show. And Linda, we want to hear how you got started in dressage.
It's a little bit of a sad story, actually, because I was living in Sydney, Australia, and I was finally in a place where I could live my dream, and I bought a horse. It was a lovely thoroughbred, and I wanted to event. And he turned out to be quite the maniac and run away. And so my instructor said, you know, there's no way you're going to get around the jump course, let alone the cross-country course, without, you know, your arms being stretched about 5 feet. And maybe you should concentrate on dressage because he needs a little bit more education. So that was like a nightmare to me because I was one of those riders that really wanted to go fast and jump everything in sight. And I thought the dressage arena was really boring and that only people who were afraid rode in the dressage arena. But finally, I had to admit that I was afraid enough to focus on dressage because my horse was pretty serious. And I started to like it. I realized it was not as easy as it looks from the outside and not as dull as I thought it was. It was actually quite the mental game. And so that's how I started.
Great. And so tell us a little bit about how you met Pat and how you kind of got started with your whole life together.
Well, same horse, because I started doing dressage, but 2 years later, he was no better. He was, you know, I was still having a lot of problems with him. And I bought another horse in the meantime, and within 6 months, I was out competing and doing quite well. So I basically got the message that, you know, you're okay, but the horse is the problem. And I refused to give up on the horse. People told me put a bullet in its head and get rid of it, sell it to a man. This is not a lady's horse. He's crazy. And I just, you know, how girls are, you love your horse and you don't want to give up. And luckily, I didn't give up. And I walked into my local tack store and saw a video of a cowboy riding around on a horse. And I thought, well, that's got nothing to do with me. I do dressage. And he's a Western rider, and all these cowboys, you know, throw their arms in the air and flap their elbows and ride with big spurs and shank bits. And as I watched, I was quite impressed with how harmonious it was. And then all of a sudden, I realized he was doing everything without a bridle. And I was shocked, and I thought, how can anybody do that stuff without a bridle? I rode with no bridle when I was a kid, but I had no control. It was just kind of a joyride.
There's riding without a bridle, and then there's riding without a bridle.
There you go. Well, I was riding without a bridle. And he had complete control of this horse, and he was doing spins and flying changes, and then he did a slide stop, and I could not believe my eyes. And I thought, well, maybe this guy has got something to teach me, because if he can stop his horse with no bridle from a flat-out gallop, then maybe he'll help me stop my horse at X from a trot with a bridle. Mm. And I went to his seminar and very quickly found out that I didn't know the first thing about horses. Even though I'd been riding horses for 20 years at that time and competing and being successful, except with this particular horse, it was like a huge awakening for me, because he started talking about the horse's mind and how they think and how they experience things, and to look at things from the horse's point of view. And I was just absolutely shocked. I never imagined that my life could change that dramatically in one session with somebody I thought was a cowboy. And of course, it turned out he was not a cowboy. He was a horseman, and he's like half horse, half human. And that changed my life, and in more ways than one, as you can now see, because at first I went just to sell horse pugs, but then I began to promote him in Australia, and I brought him out a couple of times a year, and then finally we decided we couldn't live without each other, and here I am. That was in 1993 that I came over here, and I met him in 89.
So she married a horse guy.
Married a horse guy.
That's one of the continuing arguments. Do you marry a horse guy or not? But you did, and obviously he's successful.
How lucky is that?
Yeah, how lucky is that? Yeah, who looks good in a cowboy hat to boot. So you became a very successful trainer in your own right. Fast forward many years to today, and we have a dressage symposium from Linda Parelli. And for many of us, especially here in America, Linda Parelli is the second half of the Parelli team, which one does not generally associate with dressage. Why the dressage symposium, and why now?
Well, dressage was my love. That was my passion when I met Pat. And he basically said to me, he pulled punches. He said to me, I know that you're serious and passionate about dressage, but I want you to think about this. Dressage is a very sophisticated language. It's a high degree of refinement with a horse. And he said, you have nothing to refine.
Hey, wait a minute.
Okay. All right. You got that. And he was right, because, I had control issues. I had relationship issues with my horse. That was another thing. He said, all your problems. He said, you don't have all these problems of bolting and rearing and being out of control. He said, you have a relationship problem with your horse. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, he doesn't trust you. He doesn't understand you. It's like, oh, my God, I never expected that to come out of a 6'1" cowboy's mouth. You have a relationship problem, ma'am, So he's, basically then I said, well, okay, well, then I have to learn about horses. I need to know how they think, how they feel, how they act, how they play, what's important to them, how they learn. And I got very involved in Pat's method, of course. And then I became one of his instructors, and then I started teaching other people. And it was all this foundation about how to be with horses in a way that we aren't normally taught. And together, of course, we popularized natural horsemanship around the world. And I pretty much got a reputation for criticizing dressage, but I wasn't criticizing dressage. I was just, here's the road we go down when we don't really have the foundation on which to build. And I was telling my own story about all the failures and things like that. No matter how passionate your teacher is and how good they are, if you're not ready for this, it's a very frustrating thing for both horse and rider. So, of course, lots of people come to us from all kinds of disciplines, and mainly because they have problem horses. But what we really would like to get across is that, don't come because you've got a problem horse. Come because you want to learn about the horsemanship and things and how you can take that on and beyond dressage. So after about 15 years of teaching around the world with Pat, I finally had a little bit of time where I could start riding my own horses again more regularly. And I decided I wanted to get back and study dressage. And I said to Pat, so will you coach me? And he said, no, he said, I'm not a dressage instructor. He said, you need somebody now who's a master in that, who understands the sport, and who shares the same principles of putting the horse first. And, we'll find that person. And so it took, I guess, about 8 or 9 months. And finally, we went and saw Walter Zettel at a clinic, a USDF clinic that he was doing not far from us here in Ocala. And we went along, and we weren't in the stand for 2 minutes, and Pat hit me with his elbow, and he said, that's the guy. And so we went and talked to Walter after that, and Pat said, will you come and teach Linda and also me? Pat had a lot of lessons with him in the beginning as well. And he came every 2 months for 5 days with us. And I was so blessed to be coached by Walter. And he shared exactly the same principles that we do. We go about things a little bit differently in some ways, but everything just dovetailed so beautifully. And then Walter got so interested in what we were doing. He said, I've never seen such happy horses and such unfrustrated people. And what are you doing? And so the more we got to know each other and work together, became each other's greatest fans. So Walter was a big part of the Dressage Summit in the end, because he wanted us to meet Christoph Hess, and he told Christoph about us. And we finally did that a year ago at the Trainers Conference or Symposium in Wellington. And we met with Christoph, and he was blown away by what he saw Pat doing, and saw my young horse and said, he's really correct in all the basics. And then it just grew from there, and we decided we're all on the same mission here. We want dressage to be the beautiful thing it really is. We want the principles of the olden days to be brought forward and maintained, more widespread than they are now. Of course, there are people that are doing it, but we want to make it more mainstream. And that's one of Christoph's big passions too, is to go, hey, this is not roll curve, hyperflexion, and seesawing them out, and stressed horses and force. He says that's not how it should be. So anyway, that's how it all came together. And I don't know how we actually dreamed up the summit, but all of a sudden there it was.
Wow. And how many attendants did you have here in Wellington?
I think we had about 300 people.
Wow,
yeah, I heard it was a great turnout, and it was really successful.
And I think it went really well. I need to see the video because I think I was unconscious for most of it. I was so excited being amongst it all. And for me, I don't pretend that I'm a dressage rider. I'm learning dressage. I'm learning all those bits and pieces and figuring out how to work the psychology through it, because we train through behavioral psychology with horses. And so one of my videos that I launched that was the first foray into the dressage arena was about contact and how to understand contact from the horse's point of view. How can you get the horse to want to take the contact instead of pushing him into it? And so that really is what started to put things on the map. And Walter started recommending it to all his students and sending it to all his friends and publishers around the world. And so then, unwittingly, in a way, I was thrust into that world. But I see myself more as a student there and helping to break things down and simplify them, because that's the role I also played with Pat over all these years. It's like, how can I make his message more understandable? I often joke, it's like, lucky I'm blonde, because I have to really simplify things.
No, I think that's very helpful for all. And I think contact for all dressage riders is a tough thing. It's hard to describe it. It's hard until you feel it and understand it with your particular horse. So I think that's wonderful.
Exactly. And of course, when I started riding with Walter, I didn't have contact. And I was all proud that my horse was so light and I could do flying changes and passage, put little inverted commas around it. I could do all that before Walter came on the scene, but then he kept at me with all the basics and you don't have contact. I'm like, I don't get it though. I don't really understand. And he basically rode my horse through me, and it took basically 3 years until one day I felt it and I thought it was wrong. And I remember watching the video with Walter, because I was all kind of, at that point I was frustrated because I'm thinking, why is he not correcting me? This feels really wrong. And all of a sudden, he was just going, yeah, good. And I go, this can't be good. And we watched the video, and for the first time, I saw my horse in a frame and moving through his body like he'd never done before. And I went, okay, I have no idea what contact's supposed to feel like. I just felt it. Now, how can I do this on purpose? And then as soon as I tried to do it on purpose, my horse hated it. So then I was like, okay, I haven't got the master riding my horse through me. How can I make this a game so my horse goes, oh, I know the outcome. I know the goal. Let me hold your hand. Let me, drive with my hind leg into your hand. And that's why I worked out the game of contact. And that's why I call it the game. Everything we try to do in our system is make it a game so the horse can get mentally involved in the outcome instead of just being our puppet.
Well, first of all, Linda, you're not a blonde. You're a right brain introvert, and it's okay.
I must be channeling right brain introvert because I'm a right brain extrovert.
So you've gotten the light bulb moment. So Are we going to be seeing Linda Parelli on the entries list on some shows coming up here? Are you going to get out there in the world and start competing again?
I don't know. I competed a lot before I met Pat. I was a very competitive person. And then when I got involved in Pat's program, I got it was more about how good can I get with horses. It didn't matter about the discipline. It's like, how good could I get in the psychology of training where horses want to perform for me and I can do things already with no bridle or with a bridle or, So I really lost my interest in competition and got very involved in learning how to train and how to teach. And so now as I'm studying in dressage, I haven't hit that spot where I want to compete. I want to teach and I want to demystify, and I want to bring the behavioral approach to training horses. I've worked with horses all around the world and in some pretty high-level stables like Klaus Balkenholz and Louis Lucio and Luca Manetta, who's in Grand Prix jumping. And I help them all not with the discipline, but I help them with the psychological approach with their horses or the behavioral approach. So I don't see myself as a dressage expert. I'm not even trying to be a dressage expert, but I want to ride really well and I want to ride Grand Prix. And I want people to go, oh, I'm glad she doesn't compete. Like that's my goal. So for me, competition's not it. It's more about personal development, but that whole backside of it that we bring into the picture, which is the behavioral psychology.
Well, wonderful. Linda, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening. If people would like to find some more information about your methods and the Parelli methods and also about the Dressage Summit, where can they find you online?
Parelli.com, very easy. And if they're interested in our, how to learn more about horses and the inside of horses, then we have a levels program for that. But otherwise, there's the Game of Contact DVDs and then the series that I just made with Christoph Hess called The Scale of Training.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at TotalSaddleFit.com.
Well, we are very happy to have a friend of ours, Kelly McGinn, on the radio show this evening. Kelly, you are our trainer tip of the week. Can you get started on the tip you're giving all of us?
Sure. I've come up with an easy way to explain and to help the rider kind of break down the trot a little bit. And I think sometimes it can be daunting when a rider thinks of, I need to collect the horse or I need to engage the horse. So I've come up with an easy way to describe it to my students that really makes it very simple. And I call it gear work, and this is not really, kind of a new thing in dressage, but I've made it really simple. What I try to think about is like third gear is like your basic working trot. You're forward, you feel like your horse is, even in both reins, and, this is just your working trot. And then we have the lower gears that are basically like first and second gear. And we think first gear kind of being that trot that you would have right before you walked. And then second gear is that trot that's maybe a little bit in between first and third gear. And then we have fourth and fifth gear, which is fourth gear is more sort of going towards your medium trot. Fifth gear is towards extended trot. So for me, this is a really easy way in a lesson to kind of teach the rider and to show the rider, okay, I want you to do this movement in fourth gear, or I want you to do this movement in, second gear. And one of the most important things when the rider is doing the lower gears is to make sure that they have a couple of things going on as they do this. For example, if the rider is going to put the horse into first gear, what this does is this allows the rider to feel that they are riding and controlling the steps of the hind legs. And this is, kind of an important step for the rider to make sure that they feel the steps of the hind legs and that they can make sure that the energy belongs to them. In other words, that the horse just doesn't stop when they feel the rider start to ride a transition. This also is a great exercise to get the horse to relax and swing in the back a little bit. But when the rider is doing these lower gears, it's important that they keep the horse straight underneath them and not let the horse, kind of step left or right. And it's also important that the rider make sure that the horse is soft in the hand. We want to make sure that the horse is on the seat and that the rider is not holding the horse into the lower gear. All of these things combined really make sure that the horse, gets relaxed and uses the rhythm. You really want to use the rhythm to make sure that the horse, swings a little bit. And I want to be clear and make sure that this is not, an engaging exercise. This is not collecting the horse. And this makes it really easy for the rider, not thinking like, oh my gosh, I've got to, make these hind legs quicker. I've got to make the horse, more active and engaged. I mean, really, if you break it down and just say, I'm just working on relaxation here and making sure that the horse is soft in my hand. And then the next piece of this is, once the horse relaxes and the rider feels that the rhythm is there, then the rider can leave that gear and then maybe go to the higher gear. You might leave first gear and then go to third gear and then maybe come back to second gear, and when you are going in and out of these gears, you're making sure that the relaxation and the softness that you achieved in that gear is still there. And this makes it just really, really easy. And, for example, if you have a horse that wants to kind of suck back and be a little bit lazy all the time, the common thought is, okay, I'm just going to, give a kick and put my leg on and drive the horse forward. And sometimes this is not the best way. It makes the horse then more tight in the back. So, it's a really great exercise then if we have, a lazy horse. We go to the lower gear, and make sure that the horse does not stop. The rider is in control of the steps of the hind legs and in control of the energy. And then you might leave that lower gear, and kind of leave it with purpose and then push the horse then up to fourth gear, and then come back to third gear and then go back to fourth gear. So this is a really simple, easy way for the rider just to think about it and say, I don't have to engage my horse. It's not that. It's I'm just going from one gear to the next. But I'm also making sure that while I do this, I maintain relaxation, I maintain swing in the back, and this makes it really, really nice and easy for the rider. It doesn't become a daunting task to think I have to, engage the horse. This also is a really great aid to teach the rider to ride the hind legs, to keep the rhythm of the hind legs. The rider needs to understand that they always are in control of where the hind legs are and to make hind legs step and make the hind legs, work for us, basically. It's also a wonderful way for the rider to control energy and making sure that the horse is on the seat and not on the hand. It just makes everything a little bit more simple, and it also helps the horse to be more adjustable. So.
No, I think that's a great way to think about, riding a horse in the trot. I think we all, as riders, we think we need to be able to extend, we need to be able to come back, but we don't ever think about that there's a huge adjustability in our range of trot, or should be. And if there's not a huge range in our trot, that's something that we need to work on getting. And that's what this exercise does. So I think it's a brilliant exercise and a great way to visualize that there are gears, and that you should be able to step it up, and you should be able to shift down, and you maybe need to shift to third gear from first gear. So I think that's a brilliant way to explain it. So Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening. How can we find you on the internet?
Well, I have a Facebook page for my business, and it's Kelly McGinn Dressage, and you can go on there and like it. And I try to update it as much as I can, and I put pictures and that sort of thing. And you can contact me through that. And then I also have, just a Facebook page for myself. And I would love to hear from people. And if anybody ever has any comments or questions, I, absolutely love what I do, and I enjoy talking to people and meeting new people. So please contact me. I would love to talk to you.
This tip was brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, the shoulder relief girth that Reese and Philip both love. And here's why.
The saddle fit solution you have been waiting for is finally here. TotalSaddleFit.com is proud to introduce the shoulder relief girth. This strategically shaped girth actually moves the girth line of your saddle back over 1 inch, thereby freeing your horse's shoulders from the saddle. Traditional girths pull saddles up against a horse's shoulders and often over the top of the shoulders. The shoulder relief girth's recessed ends allow for the billets to buckle into the girth farther back to give your horse unparalleled freedom of motion. We are so certain that your saddle will fit better and your horse will be more comfortable that for a limited time we are offering a 30-day, 110% money-back guarantee. If you are not totally satisfied with your shoulder relief girth, send it back for a full refund plus 10% of the purchase price. Don't wait. Order now for the best saddle fit solution available.
At TotalSaddleFit.com. Visit TotalSaddleFit.com.
Well, you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website at dressageradio.com. You can like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me at philipparksequestrian.com, and my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. Don't be afraid to send us stuff, questions, training problems. We love, kind of listener content on the show. And
we do.
Yeah, that would be great. And don't forget to check out all the other great shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we will talk to you next week.